Thank you and salutations on this February Eve. I am grateful for this opportunity to speak to you today. The host, Hofstra College Republicans, has been identified and acknowledged. Hello, friends, comrades, Republicans, wayward Democrats, and anyone else who decides to come. I am glad that you are here. I have decided to address a problem near and dear to my heart, which is the crisis of black education in America. This is Black History Month. This is supposed to be our time for us to learn more about black history. Because I remember this story that Chris Rock used to say. I remember a teacher asking her student, who was the person who wrote the I Have a Dream speech? The student answered with pride, Martin Luther King Jr. And then she asked, that's great, but who was the woman who said, are you a woman? Who made the speech, are you a woman? And this is a woman, not a man. And then the student thought for a while, and he said with pride, Martina Luther King Jr. So this is a problem that must be solved. Because the African-American male is hardly better off than his father and his grandfather. Like the Democrats haven't done anything to solve this problem. Because currently, there are 4.5 million African-Americans in this country between the ages of 15 and 29. But only 8% of us graduate from college. Out of the 300,000 black graduate students, only 1% of them are law school students. And out of that 1%, out of that 3,000, only 900 are law students who are black. So basically, you could take Hofstra Law School, fill it with all black men, and that would be the number of black men in this country who are law school students. Like I know Occupy Wall Street say that it's bad to be the 1%, but I stand before you today with pride and say, I am that 1%. Because one of the reasons why we have this problem is because of the lack of education, both in the black community and in the white community. Because quite simply, the reason why we as black people have not come much farther than our forefathers is because of a comparative lack of education on both sides that hinder our advancement. People quite simply do not know our history, because my history is your history, because I consider myself to be an American. They don't know, they know about Egypt, but they don't know about the Darfur crisis in Sudan that my church is working so hard to eradicate. They don't know the reason that we have advanced so much is through education. It wasn't through social programs. Because at the end of slavery, 95% of us could not read. We were not allowed to read. We were killed if we read. But now it's more like 10%. And that 85% difference is because we worked hard and we became educated to do great things. I, as a black man, am the most distrusted segment in America, hands down. And the most misunderstood, because it is a balancing act. But this balancing act, I always lose. Because W.E.B. Du Bois, I'm reading his book right now, he said, it is a peculiar sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on and imbues contempt and pity. Let's focus on those words, contempt and pity. If I try to play down my blackness, they look upon me with pity and say, why don't you act more black? And if I try to play up my blackness, they look upon me with contempt and say, you shouldn't do that. You should assimilate into the white community. So it is a lose-lose situation. Because I remember during my boarding school one time, my friends were telling me, I wasn't there, but they were. A teacher was passing by, and he saw them, and he said, gentlemen, unthug yourselves. And I was shocked until I realized we're fighting an enemy that's greater than ourselves. This enemy is ignorance. Because we are at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever come to stop our ascent from the caves to the cosmos. And if we lose that war, people will look on with the greatest puzzlement that black people who have overcome so much to be free would fall at the hands of a sinister enemy known as ignorance. Because I've had to overcome many obstacles to become the man I am today. I was not born this way, but I worked this way through education. Many people don't realize this, but I couldn't talk until I was 3, and I had to wait until I was almost 6. I had to wait until I was almost 6 to read. I was in that special ed program from when I was 2 to when I was 5. It was called TOTS. It stands for These Are Our Treasures. I pass by it sometimes and I look on it with pride because it made me the man I am today. But my parents would not give up on me. They're Republicans and conservatives, and they encouraged me to read. They pushed me to read. They told me that, look, you can overcome to become great things. Because remember, I didn't watch TV as a young child on the weekdays. The only TV I watched was either regular news or Fox News. And I read plenty of books. I've read my share of books, and I've read your share of books. Because I remember, like, on more than one occasion, a library has told me that I've read all the books in that library. And I had to do that while juggling my studies, because I knew that if I didn't stop, I would only go downward. Because I've had to overcome a lot from middle school and high school. Like, I really have. And that's one of the reasons why I am a conservative today. Because if my dad earned $100,000 a year, and he sent us to a private school, but he still had to pay expenses, like $18,000. He had to pay $18,000 a year for our apartment, and the government probably took out a quarter, so that's like $25,000. And then when you add that together, he only had $57,000 left to play with. So he's decided to take us to private schools because he knew like how bad the public schools in New York were. Because he said, I will not send my children to that schools because I know that if I send them there, they'll only go down until they're 6 feet under. But because like that school was like 10,000 and he had to multiply by 3, that's 30,000. So there wasn't much left over to play with. I remember a lot of times I couldn't receive the presents that other kids had because my parents said, look, it's either that present or your education. And I'm forever grateful that he chose that education. And because I'm a Republican, because if they raised higher taxes on me, I couldn't go to that private school. I would have to go to a public school. But only 40% of black males graduate from public school. And in the boarding school I went to, 98% graduated from that public school. So think of the difference, 98% and 40%. That's a difference of nearly double. And I know people from my grade who were in gangs and who have baby mothers. Like, I consider the baby mothers, the ones with the baby mothers, the lucky ones because they're still alive. But the ones in the gangs, I remember one of my classmates, we were in the same 8th grade. Like, I went to boarding school, and he spiraled out of control until one day I've learned that he was shot in the South Bronx and died. And that's why I'm a Republican. I will be so for the rest of my life. I will never support higher taxes, ever, because I know that if my parents would have had to pay higher taxes, I would have ended up like him. So what is the solution to this problem? Malcolm X said, education is our passport to the future. For tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. You may say, I do enough for black masses. I read, I study, I give out money. But you're doing enough for them, but are you doing enough for yourself? So what can you do to help? W.E.B. Du Bois said, education is a whole system of human training, within and without the schoolhouse walls, which molds and develops men. We must educate ourselves, because then we'll be free. Then we can ascend upwards into a heavenly realm of education and opportunity. In the immortal words of James Welton Johnson, the man who composed the Negro National Anthem with hands sent by God, we have come over a way that which tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, facing the rising sun of our new day become. Let us march till our victory is won. My intellectual forefathers, such as Douglass, Du Bois, and King, were not mistaken, and our martyred fallen, who gave their lives in the righteous battle against slavery, were not slain in vain. So what can you do for yourself and do with me to ensure this victory? Do like I am in reading Black history. I'm offering you a one-book challenge. See this book and see this book. I will do it with you. I hope you accept it with me, because I accept no excuses. I'm in law school Like, I have to read for 40 to 50 hours a week. And if I can find time, then you can find time. You can cut stuff out. You can cut out drinking for 30 minutes a day to read about black history. If you smoke, either legal or illegal substances, you can find 30 minutes a day to read about black history. Because I'm concerned that in this country, we only read about black history when we have to, when we're taught to. We never take the initiative to learn for ourselves. But don't get me wrong, you don't have to pick books this big. I'm a special case. You just have to pick a book based on a topic you're interested in black history and read it. Because then you will be free. Thank you very much.